John William Hummel spent 10 years on Texas death row, counting down to the needle after a night of pure horror. In the dark of December 17, 2009, he grabbed a baseball bat and crushed his sleeping 5-year-old daughter's skull, then beat his father-in-law to death and stabbed his pregnant wife 35 times. But to understand how a quiet kid from a small South Carolina town became that monster, we have to go back to the beginning, to a boy who felt invisible from the start. Hit that like button and subscribe to be part of our growing community. Also, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from as we dive into this chilling story. John was born on November 4, 1975, in Jonesville, South Carolina, a dot on the map where everyone knows your name, whether you want them to or not. Money was tight, but never desperate. The Hummels had a roof, food, and a wood stove that kept the chill out. What they didn't have was warmth. Jackie, John's mother, ran the house like a drill sergeant. Step out of line, and the belt came off, fast. She was the disciplinarian, his sister Nita later said. Jackie saved her smiles for neighbors and church friends. At home, affection was rationed. John's father wasn't much softer. Childhood friend Derek Joe Paris still remembers the sting of a belt or the crack of a broomstick across a kid's back. Love, in that house, left marks. Neglect started early. Before John and Nita were even in school, Jackie would disappear for hours, leaving 2 small children alone in a house heated only by that smoky wood stove. One day, toddler Nita called the operator in tears because she was scared. John, maybe 5, maybe 6, was the big brother trying to keep it together. But who kept him together? School was no refuge. Kids smelled the wood smoke on his clothes and dubbed him Bacon. He missed 16 days in 2nd grade, showed up late more often than not, and flunked 4th grade outright. A learning disability, disorder of written expression, turned every essay into torture. He took the state exit exams writing section 3 times and failed. On the 4th try, with special help, he barely passed. Still, teachers saw flashes of potential. In special ed classes every year of high school, John stayed quiet, cooperative, never a discipline case. His ROTC uniform fit sharp, and he took 2nd place in an art contest. He could have gone to college with the right support, his teacher Hyla Scoggins insisted. Friends like Mark Pack, who'd known him since age 9, called him kind, funny, a little slow but never mean. Trouble? None on the books, no fights, no stolen bikes, no police at the door. John drifted through adolescence like a ghost. Overweight, unathletic, the kid you teased when he bragged about being smart. At 22, he did the unthinkable. He enlisted in the U.S. Marines. For years later, he walked out with an honorable discharge, a few medals, and a new swagger that made the old gang laugh. Intelligence analyst? John, life, though, had other plans. Chronic colitis flared. Surgeons removed part of his colon. For months, he wore a colostomy bag, a daily humiliation that chipped away at the man the Marines had built. Then came his first shot at fatherhood. In San Diego, he met Letty Bandit Huberts, homeless, pregnant, lost. John played hero, dated her, moved her to South Carolina, set her up in a trailer near his parents. He worked the Kohler factory line with his dad, put his last name on the baby. But when the diapers and midnight feedings became real, John folded. He wrote a short letter. I'm not ready to be a dad. Bought a one-way bus ticket to Texas and vanished. Nita had to hand Letty the note and watch a new mother's heart break. Years later, married to Joy, raising their daughter Jody, money stayed tight. Joy's father, Clyde, never let John forget his spotty work record or lingering health issues. Nita saw a different side. John gentle with Jody, reading her stories, building blanket forts. Yet the old echoes, belts, empty rooms, the smell of wood smoke and shame, never left him. They simmered, waiting. And one winter night in 2009, something inside John snapped wide open. How does a boy who never threw a punch become a man who swings a bat at his own child? The answer is buried in those early years, in every lash of the belt and every hour left alone. The path from Jonesville to death row wasn't paved with poverty or gang tattoos. It was paved with silence, shame, and a rage that finally found a voice. The Hummel house on Little Road in Kennedale, Texas, looked like any other in the quiet Fort Worth suburb. Christmas lights blinking on the porch, a minivan in the driveway, the faint smell of pine from the tree inside. But by December 2009, the walls were closing in on John William Hummel. Money was tight. His night shift security job paid just enough to keep the lights on, but never enough to quiet the arguments. Joy, his 35-year-old wife, worked as a massage therapist and was 14 weeks pregnant with their second child. She was the glue, outgoing, loving, always planning. Her father, Clyde Bedford, 54 and confined to a wheelchair, lived with them. He doted on his granddaughter, 5-year-old Jody, and never missed a chance to remind John that he wasn't pulling his weight. John had another secret eating at him. In October, he'd met Christy Freeze at a convenience store near his job. What started as small talk turned into late-night texts, then sex in early December. When John told Christy that Joy was pregnant, she cooled off. But on December 16th, everything changed. Christy texted him. Her divorce was final. She was free. For John, that message lit a fuse. A new life was possible, if only the old one would disappear. Thursday, December 17th, began like any other. John finished his shift, came home, and tucked Jody into bed. She was all giggles, excited about kindergarten and the upcoming Christmas break. Joy kissed him goodnight and talked about baby names. Clyde wheeled to his room early. Around 9 p.m., John told Joy he was visiting a friend. He climbed into his uniform, drove 25 miles southwest to Joshua, and knocked on Christy's door. Her little girl was awake, watching TV. John sat on the couch for an hour, his mind racing. This was his chance. He left around 10 p.m., the decision already made. He pulled into the driveway just after 10:30 p.m. The house was dark, everyone asleep. John walked straight to the kitchen, picked up a steak knife, and slipped into the master bedroom. Joy was on her side, breathing softly. He stood over her for a full minute, maybe more, then drove the blade into her neck. She woke screaming, fighting with everything she had. Her nails raked his arms. She kicked, clawed, begged. The knife snapped in half. Blood poured. John grabbed an aluminum baseball bat from the closet and swung. Once. Twice. Her skull cracked. She went limp. But he wasn't done. He snatched 2 decorative swords and a dagger from the wall and stabbed her 35 times. Chest, stomach, back, legs. The unborn baby never had a chance. Clyde's room was next. The 54-year-old lay helpless, asleep. John raised the bat and brought it down hard. Skull fractures. Blood. No words, no struggle. Just silence. Then the pink bedroom. Jody was curled under her blanket, clutching her stuffed bear. She never woke up. One swing crushed her tiny skull. The little girl who loved princesses and bedtime stories was gone in an instant. By 11:30 p.m., the house was a slaughterhouse. John poured accelerant in 3 places: living room, kitchen, hallway. He struck a match and walked out. Flames roared behind him as he drove away. He tossed the bat and broken knives into a field, then headed to the Walmart in Burleson. He lingered in the aisles, making sure the security cameras caught him Christmas shopping. He hit 2 more stores before dawn, building his alibi. Just after midnight, a neighbor saw the glow and called 911. Firefighters arrived at 12:15 a.m. Officer Joshua Worthy kicked in the front door and stepped into hell, smoke, heat, and the smell of death. By 4:30 a.m., John pulled up in his minivan, calm as ever. "Did everyone make it out?" he asked Worthy, parking across the street like a worried husband. At the police station, the lies came easy. He'd driven to Joshua, no one was home, then shopped for gifts. The blood on his pants? Scratches from the dog. He even showed up for work at 8 a.m., grabbed his paycheck, and left by 11 o'clock. But the bodies told a different story. No smoke in their lungs. They were dead before the fire started. Joy's defensive wounds. Jody's crushed head. Clyde's shattered skull. John hit the road west, dreaming of Christy. 2 days later, on December 20th, he reached the Tijuana border. No passport. Border agents ran his name. An alert popped up. Armed and dangerous, missing person. They detained him in San Diego. Within hours, the mask slipped. "I killed them," he said. He described every blow, every stab, every second he stood over Joy deciding her fate. He admitted hitting Jody last. "I didn't want to, but I had to." A vibrant mother, her unborn child, a devoted grandfather, a kindergartner with her whole life ahead, wiped out in their own beds for a fantasy. Kennedale wept. The house on Little Road became a tomb. And John, his calm cracked wide open in a border holding cell. The monster had nowhere left to hide. On December 20th, he pulled up to the San Isidro crossing, the busiest land port in the world. No passport. Border agents ran his license plate and name through the system. An alert popped instantly. Armed and dangerous, missing person, possible homicide suspect, out of Kennedale, Texas. They pulled him aside, detained him in San Diego, and called Tarrant County. Detectives flew out the same day. In a small interview room, they read him his rights again. At first he stuck to the shopping story. Then the weight of the evidence cracked him. The bodies with no smoke in their lungs, Joy's blood on his clothes, the bat and knives already being pulled from the field where he'd dumped them. Within hours he confessed, first orally, then in a full written statement detailing every stab, every swing, every match. His escape lasted 48 hours. The border wall he hit wasn't concrete. It was his own trail of blood and lies. John Hummel's first words to the police were smooth as glass. He sat in the interview room on December 18th, still smelling of smoke, and spun a simple story. He'd left the house at 9 p.m. to visit a friend in Joshua, found nobody home, filled the tank, then spent the night hopping between Walmarts to compare toy prices for Jody. He claimed he didn't roll back until 5 a.m. and saw the fire. Detectives Jason Charbonnet, Eric Carlson, and ATF agent Stephen Steele listened without interrupting. He even laughed a little, asked about the dog. When they pointed to the dried blood on his pants, he shrugged, "Dog scratched me last night." He changed into clean clothes, handed over the stained ones, and signed a statement that matched every detail. They hadn't read him his rights yet. He was just a witness. So they let him walk. He clocked in at work that morning like nothing had happened. But the bodies were already talking. No soot in their lungs. Defensive slashes on Joy's arms. The bat's pattern on Jody's skull. By 6:59 a.m., Miranda rights were read. John stuck to his story, denied everything, and was released. 2 days later, everything collapsed at the San Diego jail. Tarrant County detectives flew in, read Miranda again, and John broke. He gave a full oral confession, then wrote it out in his own handwriting. The 30 minutes standing over Joy, the broken knife, the bat, the swords, the fire, the weapons dumped in a field. No more shopping alibi. No more friend in Joshua. Back in Fort Worth, he pleaded not guilty and fought to keep every word out of court. His lawyers argued the statements were coerced, the searches illegal, the fire possibly accidental. Judge David Evans shut it all down. The evidence poured in. Walmart cameras showed him after the fire started. Receipts were time-stamped post-murder. Joy's blood on his socks and pants. Clyde's on a trash bag. Jody's on the bat. The arson pattern, 3 deliberate pours, proved intent. Christy Freeze took the stand and read their texts aloud. The affair, the divorce news, the motive. The trial began in the summer of 2011. Prosecutors called it cold-blooded family annihilation. The defense leaned on John's Marine service, his colitis, a hint of PTSD. The jury didn't flinch. On June 22, 2011, after just a few hours, they returned, guilty of capital murder. The punishment phase was brutal. Experts debated future danger. Jurors said yes. Childhood belts and learning struggles weren't enough to outweigh the savagery. On June 28, 2011, the jury answered Texas's special issues. He would kill again, and no mitigating factors saved him. Judge Evans sentenced John William Hummel to death. Christy Freeze faced no charges. She left the stand shaken but untouched by the law. John's appeals dragged on for a decade. Claims of bad lawyers, PTSD, conflicts when his trial attorney later joined the DA's office. None stuck. The conviction held. The sentence stood. And the clock on death row kept ticking toward one final moment. John William Hummel crossed the threshold of Texas's Allen B. Huntsville Unit on June 28, 2011, and for the next decade the outside world shrank to a slit in a steel door. Death row here is a fortress of silence. 200 men in single cells, each the size of a parking space. 23 hours a day, John paced 6 steps one way, 6 back, the concrete cold under his feet. 1 hour of wreck meant a chain link cage the size of a dog run, sky visible only through wire mesh. Meals came on trays slid through the bean slot, powdered eggs, mystery meat, white bread. A 13-inch TV bolted high on the wall offered 4 channels: news, old sitcoms, religious programming. He could check out 3 books a week from the rolling cart. He favored military history, Louis L'Amour westerns, and anything with a dog on the cover. Guards called him Quiet Hummel. No write-ups, no fights, no gang ties. He nodded when spoken to, kept his cell tidy, folded his jumpsuit at night. Once a month he shuffled to the visitation booth, thick glass between him and Nita or an old Marine buddy. They pressed palms to the divider, talked about Jody's favorite color, Joy's laugh, the baby who never drew breath. Letters piled up, pen pals, prayer groups, a woman in Ohio who sent Bible verses in purple ink. John wrote back in careful block letters, apologizing for the pain, promising he'd changed. Whether the words reached his heart or just filled empty hours, no one could say. Appeals became his lifeline. Lawyers filed motions thick as phone books. PTSD from colitis surgery. Trial counsel who later joined the DA's office. Cruel and unusual delay during COVID. Every denial landed like another brick in the wall. In 2020, the execution date was set for March 18th, then pushed to June 30th, 2021, when the pandemic cleared. John spent the extra year reading the Gospels, underlining passages about forgiveness in red pencil. Wednesday, June 30th, 2021, started at 5 a.m. with the usual clatter of breakfast trays. John ate the scrambled eggs and toast, drank the weak coffee. At 9 o'clock the van came, ankles shackled, wrists cuffed to a belly chain, and rolled him 90 miles south to the Huntsville Unit, the walls, where the death house waits behind red brick towers. He was strip-searched, issued a clean white jumpsuit.
According to him, he's not afraid of dying. Jesus Christ is waiting for him up there to accept his soul.
They spoke through the mesh for an hour, her voice cracking, his steady. A chaplain read Psalm 23. An old friend from the Marines brought a photo of Jody in her kindergarten cap. John traced the image with a finger, whispered, "Tell her I'm sorry." At 3 p.m. the warden offered the phone. John declined. No one left to call. Texas ended special last meals in 2011, so supper was the same as every other prisoner's. Fried pork chop, mashed potatoes with brown gravy, pinto beans, sliced tomatoes on iceberg, 2 slices of whole wheat bread, sweet tea. He cleaned the tray. At 6 p.m. the team came. 6 officers, soft voices, practiced hands. They walked him the 12 steps to the chamber. Straps across chest, arms, legs. For lines in both arms, saline drip running. Through the windows, Joy's cousins on the left, Nita and the chaplain on the right. The warden read the warrant. John's last words came clear, rehearsed but raw. "When they lay me down to sleep, for I am to die for justice, the Lord my soul to take. I'll be with Jesus when I wake. I truly regret killing my family. I am thankful for all the thoughts and prayers for my family over the last few days. I love each and every one of you." At 6:36 p.m., the pentobarbital pushed through the line. 13 shallow breaths. A soft snort. His chest stilled. At 6:49 p.m., the doctor listened, nodded. John William Hummel, 45, was pronounced dead. 3 lives ended in blood and fire. 1 ended under fluorescent lights and a silent clock. Was the needle justice, mercy, or just the state's final erasure? Tell me in the comments. Was it enough? Hit like if the weight of this one stays with you, and subscribe for the stories we can't look away from.